cybersecurity students that are watching this or people that are interested in getting into it, I know of, several that are watching that are kind of really kind of getting started with that fundamental piece. What are some resources that you recommend that they look into to set those fundamentals up so by the time they get into a university environment, they're like 10, 15 steps ahead. And then of course that'll compound whenever they graduate the university environment, they'll be, pretty much running their own company by that point.
Well, I've become a real fan of Try Hack Me. I love their resources. I love their learning paths. They've got some really good ones. That would be a really good place to start. I'm also a big fan of having just hands-on experience with your own technology. So if you can get access to a computer with a little bit of memory and hard drive space, downloading a free hypervisor like VirtualBox, installing some virtual machines, Ubuntu and Windows, and just beginning to get that systems administration level experience of adding users and adding groups and setting permissions and networking machines together and learning about subnetting. There's so many things you can do at that basic level. But that is where mentors come in handy, because it's nice to have a guide walking along beside you, pointing you down the path, because there's a lot of rabbit holes you can chase and end up spending way too much time in relative to what they're worth. So it's kind of a double-edged sword, but I think the more we can mentor each other, that's one of the things I love about your channel and your videos, is you're providing a really good resource to help put folks down the lane and sort of stay between the lanes and keep their knowledge on track without getting too distracted, and just the community, having somebody to reach out to and get encouragement from and support from, that's a big deal too. So good job.
Thanks. That I did not tell guys, I did not tell him to plug my channel there. That just happened. So and then just kind of picking up on the second element that we talked about earlier with imposter syndrome. So one of the things, and I've mentioned before, like I talked about ethics, cybersecurity ethics is like one of the first things on the channel. There are things that are not cybersecurity related and may not necessarily be technical skills that are important to learn, right? So like, for instance, like probably writing like a report, uh, that's a technical skill because you can teach it, you can learn it. It's not necessarily related to cybersecurity, but you'll need it like later. Uh, but like ethics isn't really a technical skill so much as it's just an understanding of like cardinal north, due north, magnetic north, right? Just like getting oriented to what is right and wrong. And same with like imposter syndrome is just like it's something everybody deals with. How important is it for, new people getting into the industry to know that that's a natural thing to run into? Everybody deals with it. And then of course finding good, healthy, productive ways with dealing with that. Because I don't know if necessarily in like high school and college we're really teaching productive ways of dealing with that kind of stress or just, I don't know, frustration. I don't know what word to put there.
Well, let me pick up on the ethics piece first. The mission for the Drury College of Business is, in our mission statement, we talk about producing ethical leaders for the global business community. And I always start with that ethical piece in all of my cybersecurity courses, because, a lot of things that they learn, a lot of things that you learn in this industry can actually get you in a lot of trouble if you don't have a good, clear, ethical, moral compass. And so really thinking through the impact of what you're doing and how it can be perceived by others. And then even those of us in the industry, I've seen some really horrible examples of phishing campaigns, for example, that are done in the midst of layoffs at an organization or maybe in the midst of a pandemic, that really push people's buttons to try to get them to click on a link. And you can make an argument that that's what they're trying to do, but at the same time, we can treat people with dignity, we can treat people with respect, and there's ways to assess and to test for those things that don't have to involve trauma. So we really have to apply ethics very broadly and liberally across our field. Now, to the imposter syndrome, one of the things, another foundational quality that I think all of us need to focus on is humility, and just understanding that we will never know all that there is to know. And if you've ever looked up the Dunning-Kruger effect, it's easy to think you know more about a topic than you actually do. And so really being respectful of those who've been in the industry for a while and seeking out their wisdom, seeking out their guidance and their input is very helpful, because it can quickly expose you to a whole universe of knowledge that you didn't even know existed. And as you become aware of that universe, you start to feel increasingly small and tiny, and it can be intimidating and overwhelming. And that's where the imposter syndrome kicks in, because you feel like you'll never know it all, you'll never learn it all. And the reality is you don't have to. You're part of a community. If you're executing to the best of your ability and you're going as far as you can in your area, and then you're bringing alongside great talent through the teams you participate in, that's really where we move the ball down the field. There's no lone ranger in this industry that can get it all done by themselves. We really do have to be part of a whole. And the more you're able to do that, the more successful you'll be, not just in this industry, but in any industry. Really learning about emotional intelligence, learning about communication and how to listen really well. Listening and paying attention to details, those are so key in our industry, because so many things can be missed if you're just not paying attention to details. So there's definitely ways to address it, but the first step is just becoming aware of it, just knowing it's something a lot of people deal with, and it's understandable, and you're going to deal with it, but you just move past it. You focus on doing what you can do to the best of your ability, and you network in the rest.
How much would you say like teamwork in the industry will really kind of help alleviate the imposter syndrome and kind of make somebody, especially that's new to cybersecurity, not only feel more included, but kind of feel like they're really learning and picking up speed and kind of establishing a place in the industry?
Yeah, great question. Uh, I think when you think about what it means to do unto others as you'd have them do unto you, that applies so much to being a good team member. So when you're part of a team, you want to be a productive team member, and so you pay attention to what qualities you enjoy in others. Certainly, you don't reach out and ask a question if you could have Googled it yourself. Doing your own research and answering your own questions, that's a big piece of it. But you also have to be aware of the clock and the time that's going by, and when is it time to reach out and ask for help. So having semi-regular sync ups so that you can make sure that everybody feels like they're making progress, they know kind of what questions they need to find answers to, and have some leads on where they might find those answers. Those all play a big role in being a good team member. So I think communication is kind of the bottom line there. Just really making sure everybody is syncing up on a regular basis. And we all have weaknesses, we all have blind spots, and so getting feedback on those, and then having the humility, again, I'll go back to that word, having the courage to be able to address those weak spots and work on those. That's something that we all have to do.
I think there's like a societal misconception or cultural misconception about specifically hackers that they're just a bunch of lone wolves and individuals that, like, they have their hoodie on in a dark room and they're just going at it. Like, obviously, if you're going to blue team, like the defensive side, you're going to be in some sort of a team, and so that teamwork aspect is important. But with even offensive security, like the most effective uh, hacking teams work in a team. It's like a number of individuals. And so with the, you're going to have to remind me on the name of the team for Drury, the
The
cybersecurity
Drury
team.
Club.
Yes, the Drury Cyber Defense Club. How important has that been in kind of tying the teamwork element, which is kind of another one of those things that it's really hard to teach in a classroom. There are some programs out there that will kind of try to do it, but without that, like a lab environment, I guess you could say, without a place where you can actually test it out for real with,
Right.
teammates. How important has that been, to kind of tying teamwork and cybersecurity together for both offense and defense?
Yeah, I mean, it's huge. And I'll go back one more time to the National Collegiate Cyber Defense Competition. On competition day, those competitions typically start early in the morning around 8 or 9 a.m. They wrap up at 5. Um, the whole day, your task is to defend a corporate network. So in the morning, your team inherits this network, and your task is to defend it, to keep the critical services up and running. By the way, you have a red team that is attacking the network all day long. And those, back to the industry opportunities for people involved in the industry, those are volunteers from companies like Walmart and Uber and a lot of big companies, a lot of agencies, a lot of really interesting organizations have their offensive security people volunteering at these events, attacking the network that our students are trying to maintain throughout the day. So it very quickly becomes a very high stress environment. When the web server goes down, or when Active Directory just rebooted, or your firewall just had all the rules dropped, no single person on the team can fix all of that. So having some kind of a strategy ahead of time to sync up and compare notes and have your playbooks and your checklists and work through those things is huge. So that's a lot of what the clubs do, is during their practices, they'll develop those things. And again, if you are a lone wolf person that doesn't like to communicate and doesn't play well with others, you're not going to work well in those teams. And so this gives everybody an opportunity to work through those things and develop those skill sets, because they're vital. I mean, it's not even an option. It's something that has to be there. So, again, another word I want to come back to is humility. We really have to respect and appreciate the level of knowledge that exists in other domains outside of technology. We have some brilliant people in the accounting department, brilliant people in marketing, brilliant people in finance and sales, and on the front line in the plants and in manufacturing. And we have to really value that knowledge and respect that knowledge, because you can't defend what you don't understand. And so a lot of the domain experts exist outside of IT. So if we don't develop the people skills to be able to talk to and pull out that knowledge, we're not going to understand what it is we're trying to protect and defend. So communication is key, definitely an important skill.
So shifting gears here for a little bit, because we did reference Card32 a little bit earlier in the interview. You started Card32 about the time that I was born, so it's been around for well, I don't know. I guess if I'm playing to the young, then yeah, it's brand new, right? But for those that are watching that aren't familiar with Card32, do you mind just doing a quick overview on Card32?
Yeah, so we started off life as just a simple shopping cart program for people that wanted to sell things online. It's evolved over the years to more of a hosted solution where it's really kind of plug and play. So it's a very flexible tool that allows companies that want to integrate their e-commerce operations with their back office operations to handle logistics and tax and all the different things that go into running an online business. Cart32 is kind of the heartbeat of that. So I have a partner, Brian Whitaker, that's just been a fantastic business partner, more like a brother over the years. And that company has been a blessing to our family, but it's also just a really good product. We've got some customers that have been with us a long time, and I'm very proud of what's happened there.
So, what are some challenges that you've run into over the years, just kind of trying to manage business priority and the mission with cybersecurity needs and all the different challenges that crop up there?
Yeah, that's a constant challenge, not just for our business, but for every organization. I always talk about security as being kind of this pendulum where you've got to strike a balance between getting work done and selling things and doing it in a way that's secure and safe. Because if you ever let it tip and you're only focused on selling, your security is not going to be very good. But if you lock things down and you make things really secure, then all your computers are going to be sealed in concrete at the bottom of an ocean and nobody's going to get any work done. So you've got to really figure out how to balance that. And that's been a challenge at Card32. And honestly, one of the things that's helped me in the classroom a lot over the years is just seeing that real world um, balancing act of getting work done, getting business done, but doing it in a way that's safe and secure.
You actually beat me to another question again. That's two for two, right? Is how has your time at Card 32 and just the lessons you've learned there impacted your curriculum and your teaching at, Drury now and Missouri State prior to that?
Yeah, it's been huge. Certainly in the early years of teaching, my focus was more on software development. So I taught web application development, I taught desktop application development. And so having that customer focus of delivering software, I think added a lot of real world value to my classroom that was very much needed, to really bring in good conversations around budgets and interacting with clients and deadlines and some of the things that are a little more abstract maybe in some ways, but are critical. So things are important. And so the same thing with security. In my consulting work, I get to do work with some really great clients in securing the networks through penetration testing. I started another company called Digital River Information Security about 7 years ago. And so through that, I get to do assessments and engagements with clients and do some pen tests. And I love doing that because that world moves quickly. Endpoint protection has gotten significantly better just in the last 5 or 6 years that I've been doing this. And so finding out new ways around that and figuring out how malware is getting in and how it's moving laterally and what it's doing, that's one of the ways I stay current. So it's very, very useful and I think very important for anybody in the classroom to stay involved. And again, that's why I love the competitions, the National Cyber League, the Collegiate Cyber Defense Competition. Those are giving students kind of that taste of real world activity that is just impossible to simulate in an assignment. So very, very important.
What's some advice you might have for a small business owner or anybody really in a leadership position in a small to medium sized business that might be watching on how to maintain, really striking that balance that you mentioned earlier between business needs and security? You know, you mentioned that's very difficult. What are some ways that you've managed to navigate that and kind of, I guess, take the challenge out of it? Any kind of frameworks that have helped you?
Well, I think, for every business, it's a deep understanding of risk. That's where it has to start. What is it that you care about? What is it that would really result in a bad day if you came into the office and you didn't have access to X, whatever X is, and figuring out what the value of that is to your business. What's it going to cost you every day that you don't have access to X? How much are you going to be paying? What's going to be the long-term access, or the long-term impact to your business? So beginning with a risk analysis and really understanding that at a deep level, that's important for businesses and individuals. I mean, we all have to think about the data we care about and where do we keep it? How are we backing it up? What would happen if we didn't have it? Because that's really the starting point for security, right? If you come in and you suggest $100,000 solution to protect a $10,000 asset, that business owner is probably not going to be too excited about working with you, right? Because you haven't taken the time to understand their business, their risk, their budget. So that's what's happened in a lot of cases, to be honest with you, is we've had security professionals that haven't taken the time to understand the business, and we've got to do a better job at that, understanding what it is we're protecting, where the value is, and how can we add value.
Would you say that let's say like either the most recent risk assessment, if a company has been running those for a routine amount of time, or if they haven't run a risk assessment, then doing a risk assessment. Would you say that that's kind of like the birthplace of a cybersecurity plan, or would you say it comes from somewhere else?
No, 100%. I think it flows from that that risk assessment because everything else everything else is extra. Anything that we're doing that's not protecting the core assets of the business and what they care about, the rest of it is just preparation. It's identifying threats. It's getting ready for the next one. It's going through kind of a iterative process of finding the threat, finding the vulnerability, finding the exploit, and then triggering your incident response team, because we're kind of past the point of will your business be hacked? We're really more in the stage of do you know that your business has been hacked? There's two types of companies that have been hacked and know it, and companies that have been hacked and don't know it. And you want to be the former, not the latter. So the more you can develop the skill set or consultants or whatever it takes to identify that, the better. That process has to start early and is just ongoing. It really never stops.
And of course, to kind of tie it all in, how can the MCCOE kind of help with that mission of, obviously we've talked about it helping with like the pen testing side, but how can it also help with like the risk assessment side, the documentation side, creating some kind of a BCDR plan, any governance, what
Well,
are ways that the MCCOE can help there?
absolutely, and that's part of it is us taking well-established frameworks that are out there and kind of custom fitting those to the organizations that want to work with us, and allowing students to do that, wherever possible, so that organizations can get that work for free, and it gives our students valuable experience of coming in and applying a framework to an actual live business, to kind of establish that baseline, figure out where the organization is at, what are they doing well, and then identify the goal. Where do you want to be? What's realistic for a company of your size, for the budget that you have available, and then helping them develop that roadmap to get there. These are the skill sets we're lacking. These are the things that need to be in place. Maybe the MCCOE provides some of those services, but we just start to fill in those gaps. We start to connect the dots to get that company to a more secure posture.
Sweet. So, I mean, we've covered an insane amount of ground, but the one thing that we really, probably the most important thing from this interview we could possibly hit, that I know everybody's dying to know, is how good are the St. Louis Cardinals going to be this year?
Well, that's a great question. I think I can't be more excited about having Yachty back and Wainwright, and signing our new third baseman. We've got so much power on the infield now. So if we can just find a good sweet spot for Matt Carpenter and get the lineup all going, it's going to be fun. They're going to be really, really good this year. Going to be fun to watch.
We've done on this channel pretty well with likes and dislikes. We're about to get a ton of dislikes from a bunch of salty Cubs fans. Cubs fans aren't watching this content anyway. So, of course, for the future, where can people find and follow you and get to learn more about your work?
Yeah, so on Twitter, I'm at Shannon M, ShanNonM, at Shannon M. Of course, Drury University is where I teach. But most importantly, follow my great son on SecuritySec.
What an awesome interview. Thank you so much, Dad, for joining me on this video. I know I wouldn't be here in this industry if it weren't for your help and just kind of dealing with my constant annoying little questions that I definitely could be Googling myself. That's on me. But everybody needs a mentor in cybersecurity, and for me, that is you, Dad. So I really appreciate you being on this channel. So Dad, everybody, like this video if it's helpful, comment down below, subscribe for more content. We'll see you later.